The Battle of Wanat was a very recent, very bad battle between American forces and Taliban forces. The battle, surprisingly, was located at Wanat in the bottom of a valley where the outpost was. 48 Americans versus 200 Taliban. The battle was on July 3rd, 2008. It was a fine day in the outpost where the Americans were in the final stretch of the 14-month deployment. Among them was a guy named Ryan Pitts, a Medal of Honor receiver for his bravery during the battle. Everything was going fine when all of a sudden this small and exposed outpost was showered with small arms and grenades from 200 Taliban forces. The introduction to many articles gives the reader one name, Ryan Pitts, as he may be the protagonist of the whole battle. But the beginning is also growing suspense and talks normally until they add a ton of action all at once, which gives the reader the experience of the actual battle. The antagonist of the battle was the Taliban forces, the ones who ambushed and killed those 9 Americans and injured 27. The antagonist is described and branded with the deaths and injuries, making the blame fall onto the Taliban. The readers grow hatred towards the antagonist with the patriotic tones and the articles used for the battle. No man fought harder than any other, and we did what we had to do, says an American, which takes the blames off the soldier. The major hero of the battle was Ryan Pitts, who, even though severely injured, returned cover fire for troops to maneuver through all of the destruction. The protagonist adds a perspective to the story and also makes people remember it better. Ryan Pitts in this matter gives a perspective of being desperate, and it's a very intense perspective. This lets the articles inject more action into their story to keep the reader's attention. The battle lasted for 4 hours, 9 people pronounced dead, and 27 more wounded. It was an all-out war in the outpost and looked like the Taliban was going to win. There was Taliban forces clearing out huts by breaching and spraying the inside with small arms fire. The Americans were trying to hold the huts they had and start working as an offensive instead of a defensive. At this point of the story, where the storytellers tell about the stretch of the battle, the action is not rising nor falling. It has an eagle-eye perspective and keeps the reader excited for what the ending and falling action is going to be like. The ending is very short between all articles, where everything wraps up almost too quickly for the comparison of how much time they spent on everything else. The army sends in helicopters to take care of the Taliban forces. The bombs drop very close to the American forces to where one was worried that the hut would fall over from the explosives shaking. What's interesting about this is the helicopters were not depicted as heroes. The ending is very subtle and short to signify that the storytellers were not really interested about the way it ended. Instead, the stories focus on a lot of action and intensity to keep the readers and listeners enthralled.